Election 2011 coverage on Manx Radio. Brought to you by PDMS.
Well, this morning, a new name in the Manx political arena in the constituency of Malew Santon for the general election on the 29th of September. John-Hanson lives in Main Road in Santon, well, just to the side of Main Road, not actually in the road itself, of course. He's 54, married, 4 children. He's been on the island for 40 years. Used to run a small hotel, the All Seasons Broadway. Yes, good morning, Mr. Hanson. Just one thing I read in the paper, that you said you didn't want to name the hotel. Just to clear this up to people who may have read that, there was nothing sinister about that.
There wasn't at all. The simple fact is that when Louise came to me regarding the article...
This is the journalist.
Yes, she did ask what was the name of the property. Now, I said that I would prefer that she didn't name it, as I actually still own the property, but I've sold the business. Now, I thought it might... Yeah.
So you're quite happy to say it was the All Seasons in Broadway?
It's the All Seasons. There's no secret about that.
May I just give you a quote, and it's a very colourful quote here. The island was left with a bloated, oversized monster that's been fed from the honeypot of world growth of the last 2 decades. Now, you could read that to be the finance sector, but in fact, you're referring to the government.
It's government. Overall government that I'm referring to.
Bloated, oversized monster?
Oversized monster.
What, unfit for purpose?
Unfit for purpose, yes, exactly. We've got a population of 80-odd thousand people on the Isle of Man. The size of the infrastructure of government and the workforce is astronomical. It's managers upon top of managers. But when we get down to the actual men on the street trying to complete the tasks, they're far and few between.
So you're angry about the numbers of managerial staffs in the civil service?
Exactly.
So what sort of cutting would you propose? A third? What? Half?
In light of the recent VAT cuts from the UK, I think across the board now, over the next 3 years, we've got to see a 15% cut.
It's going to cost a lot in redundancy
payments.
Of
course it is.
In
without doubt. Without
pensions?
doubt. Yes, it is. But it's got to be implemented. And can I just mention other areas? The airport is costing the taxpayer an arm and a leg. Now, we've got to see about privatisation of that airport, where we can turn it round to produce the smallest of profits. But this can't be done with interference from government. We've got to leave this.
Any other areas? For instance, we've had Bas Vannin taking back on contracts. Would you say that shouldn't happen?
Actually, I'm in favour of that, because Ian Longworth, I think his approach is correct, and I think we've got to give him the time to continue along his route. I'm happy with the way everything's gone on that front.
Well, you say that many like-minded residents are unhappy. You describe them as disillusioned and upset with the general direction life on this beautiful island is taking. Yeah. In what particular aspects?
In what way? With the way government tend to wish to ignore the needs of the people.
In what way?
Can I give you?
How do they ignore it?
Let me give you one. At the minute, we're developing all the social housing on the island. Pulrose, Clackbane in Ballasalla, effectively eradicating what was there. Many of the houses around there, the people have been perfectly happy living in them. They didn't want to move out.
The houses were pretty run down. They did need renovating, didn't they?
They did. I've heard every excuse here from Clackbane, for instance, whereby the reason that these mere 50-year-old houses are being replaced is the UPVC windows, when they were put in, have caused structural faults. Yes, any building as it gets older needs maintenance. I should know that. I actually have properties in Douglas, which...
so what would your answer have been?
What's my answer to that?
So
what should we do?
What would you tell me, Clackbane?
We should have maintained the front houses and the best houses, removed the worst, and build additional houses alongside, because we are short of housing stock. I can take you around the streets of East Douglas. There's families living in little more than holiday accommodation, bedsits.
Well, let's move on to something affecting the government as well. Examine all major capital expenditure.
Yeah,
you say to put a stop to major capital expenditure, or just to review it?
No, you can't put a stop to it. We need to review it. Initially, we possibly should suspend for a period of time while we can assess what is needed. Richmond Hill, I mentioned there Richmond Hill.
You're not happy with that?
it's £3 million. It wasn't needed.
So if you were to win election, you'd say draconian measures are needed, cut government managerial staff numbers, cut down on capital expenditure. Draconian measures, you feel?
Well, yes, it sounds harsh, but initially, yes. But also cut the red tape to private enterprise. Let private enterprise flourish. And let's make a meaning to the statement.
Mr. Hanson, thank you for joining us this
Thank you
morning.
very much.
John-Hanson, who's standing in the general election on September the 29th for the constituency of Malew Santon. It's 8 o'clock.